For a pilot, every plane has its own personality, which always reflects that of its designers and colours the mentality of those who take it into action. The Spitfire, for instance, is typically British. Temperate, a perfect compromise of all the qualities required of a fighter, ideally suited to its task of defence. An essentially reasonable piece of machinery conceived by cool, precise brains and built by conscientious hands. The Spitfire left such an imprint on those who flew it that when they changed to other types, they found it very hard to get acclimatized. Certain aircraft will also go down to history as classics, typifying their epoch. The 1914-18 war calls to mind the Spad, the Breguet 14, the de Havilland DH-4, the Fokker and the Gotha. My generation, i.e. the 1939-45 generation, will immediately think of the Spit, the Moraine 406, the Stuka, the Messerschmitt 109, the Mosquito, the Yak, the Zero, the Fortress, and the Two-Tailed Lightning. Each of these planes has its tale of technical troubles, disappointments, and successes, of tactics imposed upon it by its design, and above all, of affection or dislike of those who flew it. Pierre Clostermann. Chapter 1. Prelude. 12th of May 1940, Maastricht. During the night and in the early morning, there were important enemy movements in the Ardennes region and towards the west. The columns include bridging crews. Large motorized armoured forces are on the march towards the Meuse, coming respectively from Dinant, Givet, and Neufchâteau. Our reconnaissance reports, in addition, strong columns on the roads on the general axis Maastricht-Tongres. Intelligence Summary, 12th of May, 1940. The storm coming from the east spread its flood over Flanders and the north of France. The hordes of refugees on the march ran up against our tangled and already disorganized military convoys coming up to stem the enemy tide. And already, infiltrating through the cracks in our hills, spreading over the plains, bypassing the towns, driving onward on a rattle of tracks and a stench of diesels, the panzer divisions were about to fall upon France. Drifting on the east wind, the long white condensation trails crisscrossed the blue spring sky, and over the green countryside stretched the shadow of the long black smoke trails of the invasion. The men, huddled in the ditches, shook their fists at the sky. The swine. The swine were the Stukas, tumbling down like an avalanche. First a few black spots up there in the sky and a distant roar, then down they spiraled one after the other, and above the crescendo of the engines came the scream of the bombs. The W-shaped wings with their flaps and dive brakes perched on the two slender legs of the undercarriage, the yawning gape of the radiator, all that came smack down into your eyes with a roar like the Day of Judgment. The men were left dazed and quivering. A few cars were burning on the road, and from some useless overturned B-2 came a whiff of burnt rubber and roasted flesh. The swine. And that included their own aircraft, whose wings they could see burning in a field, and also those who were getting massacred high up and far away, trying to make some impression on this terror which flowed over the roads and fell upon them from the sky. The long Dornier 17s were still slipping westwards, and from the bellies of the serried squadrons of Heinkel 3s fell the sticks of bombs pirouetting down to smash stations and villages. Up above, the angry buzz of the Messerschmitt 110s keeping watch, and all around the clumps of Messerschmitt 109s with their yellow bellies and their clipped wings scouring the sky. Black crosses, nothing but black crosses. In spite of that, at every crossroad in the villages submerged by the armoured columns, on the banks of the Meuse, perched on the piles of the demolished bridges, the long tubes of the German 37mm guns were springing up, pointing skywards. At road junctions, the half-tracks of the flak service were taking up position and setting up their multiple 20mm mountings. The clips of shells were lined up by the roadsides, and the spotters kept a lookout from the banks, range-finders at the ready. It was at Maastricht that the first blow of the battering ram fell. The narrow streets of the little Dutch town overflowed with the continuous flood of tanks and trucks crawling along the banks of the Meuse to the pontoon bridge thrown across alongside the collapsed railway viaduct by the German engineers. All that swarm of vehicles flooded onto the roads to Tongres and Bilsen and poured in an endless stream over the intact bridges across the Albert Canal at Veldwezelt and Vroonhoven.